Now, when we studied personal accountability, we think it's really misunderstood. We have whole courses on how to hardwire accountability in your organization based on a different understanding. Accountability is not a skill set, it's a mindset. And it's all about, do I believe that I can have impact in the world? And accountable people believe that they co-create their own reality. And this is important because they don't believe they're at the mercy of circumstances. They can always find one way that they had impact. And when we looked at accountability, we found that it really had 4 factors, that it didn't have a lot to do with ownership, which was surprising. That's actually 3rd on the list. People in a state of high accountability told us that the key factor to accountability was a personal choice I make to be willing to do whatever it takes without conditions to get the results that we need. Buy-in is a verb, it's a choice, it is something that the person, the employee, needs to make. And my job as a leader and in HR is to simply work with the willing. But if you're not in a state of willingness, the game is over. So we need to be asking people, what's your level of commitment? Well, I don't agree with the strategy. Then what's your plan to get on board and be in full agreement? I'm not going to. I don't like the strategy. I don't think it's where we need to go. So then what's your plan to transition to an organization where you do believe what the strategy is? Well, I'm not going anywhere. Then what's your plan to get on board? I'm not going to. Oh my goodness, you believe there's a 3rd option, that buy-in's optional, that you can stay and hate, that you can stay and sabotage, that you can stay and consume resources. And we've made buy-in optional from an HR stance on things that should be non-negotiable. Now, I'm not talking run dictatorships, but when people ask me, do you want my opinion? I say probably not, because opinions are used to stop the action. What I want is your expertise on how we could make it work, and expertise begins right after the sentence, yes, period. Yes, I'm all in. Now let's talk about what we're going to need to do to mitigate one risk I'm very concerned about that may inhibit our success. People need to know that their commitment is their first offering, their first buying in, that engagement is a choice. And this is where we are way off base in HR. Then if you're all in, I can teach you resilience, how to stay the course in the face of obstacles and setbacks. Most resilience doesn't come by developing you as an individual to be more persevering or have more stamina. It's about getting you to grow an enormous network that you can then crowdsource, because today the main predictor of our resiliency levels is our network that we can capitalize on. When I get stuck and I don't know how to move through the next obstacle, I put it out to my network of 10,000 people that I have positive relationships with and my associations I'm part of, and they provide the answers so that I can capitalize on the function of crowdsourcing. The most resilient people have the largest quality networks, and they ask for help early and often. By the time you get to ownership, feedback no longer hurts because you were all in, you were resilient, you looked for any tip you could find, and you exercised and took action on all those recommendations. So by the time you get to ownership, you're like, please tell me more about what I could do to impact. The only time feedback hurts is when the ego was half-heartedly committed and was not focusing on how to overcome, instead was focusing on why we can't rather than how we could. Then feedback and ownership ticks the ego off because it catches the ego in its own game. So if you have people that are defensive to feedback, that have a hard time taking ownership, it is because you didn't move beyond ego. There was no willingness in the first place. And continuous learning is just what happens when I'm so hungry to know more, and I can move beyond ego, and we can just depersonalize this and talk about other ways I could approach things. And then I can take that new learning and those new relationships, and I can use that to fuel future success.